Welcome to Victory Church Craddock. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell.
Good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing today? Okay, my name is Minentle, and I'll be bringing the word today. Okay, I'm just trying to open my notes. Okay, so this is the word that the Lord has been trying to get me to grasp this whole entire year. And just to give you context on the word, at the beginning of the year, I went to a therapist and she started asking me questions regarding my sense of self and identity. And at that point, I felt like I knew who God said I was, but I didn't believe it. And I went back to God because I was so tired of declaring scriptures and seeing no change. And I felt him say that if I wanted to be firm in my identity in God, I had to stop attempting to do it on my own. I had to let him break the bondage of labels that have been spoken over my life as a child. And I had to let go of my old identity so that I could confidently walk in my new one. So my therapist she wanted me to establish my identity through self-discovery, which is knowing your true self, your characteristics, your values, your needs and wants, etc. Through self-discovery, the world encourages us to look within ourselves to find our identity, when in fact we end up looking at other things to find our identity because we're looking for something that's going to tell us who we are, where we belong, and how we relate to the world. From birth, we have been labeled by a lot of different things, and we go through various life experiences. These life experiences and labels affect us consciously and subconsciously and create an image of who we are, or rather, who we think we are. Now, I just want to do this visual representation to emphasize how labels and experiences affect our identity. So, we're going to start off with comparison. This is you, okay? And this is comparison. For instance, you've been compared to different people in your life, and people say to you, I wish you'd be more like your siblings, more like your peers, or more like other children. The words of comparison spoken over our lives affect the way we view ourselves, and they ultimately become our internal voice and make us become critical of ourselves and the people that are around us. And secondly, we have validation. Labels aren't always negative, but they can still affect us. For instance, you're used to people always praising you for your achievements, and you end up making that achieving the source of your identity, and always seek validation for achieving. Thirdly, we have negative labels, being called ugly, stupid, not enough, and all those things. These words cause a negative self-esteem and affect our ability to set boundaries. If you think you're not good enough, you're going to be ready to receive any treatment that comes from people, no matter how bad it is. And in number 4, we have failure. Failure in one thing can leave you feeling like a failure, hopeless, and hinder you from attempting. Can I please have water? Labels and experiences leave us with a distorted image. Labels and experiences leave us with a distorted image of who we are because we've allowed people's opinions, labels, and situations to define us and hold us in bondage. Just like how failure hindering other people from trying instead of being motivated to work harder. We often try to solve this by looking within ourselves in an attempt to find ourselves, because eventually we get tired of our identity revolving around what people say about us, negative labels and situations. I just want to read Ephesians 1:11 through 12. It says, it's in Christ that we find out who we are and what we are living for. Long before we first heard of Christ and got our hopes up, he had his eye on us, had designs on us for glorious living, part of the overall purpose He is working out in everything and everyone. We discover our true identity through a relationship with God because He is our creator. Everything was created by God and finds its identity in Him. I also want to read Genesis 1, verse 26, where it says, Then God said, I'm just going to read the first half, where it says, Then God said, make mankind in our image and in our likeness. So what labels have been given to you, and what have you been labeling yourself? We were created to reflect God, not negative words spoken over us, not labels and experiences. And I also want to read 2 Corinthians 5, verse 17, where it says, Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, the new creation has come. The old has gone, the new is here. And I also want to read from the Message translation. Okay, hold on. It says, Our firm decision is to work from this focused center. One man died for everyone. That puts everyone in the same boat. He included everyone in his death so that everyone could also be included in his life, a resurrection life, a far better life than people ever lived on their own. And I searched a definition for resurrection, and I found a really interesting definition other than the one that we already know, which is being raised from the dead. It says resurrection is the act of causing something that had ended or been forgotten or lost to exist again, to be used again. I feel like that's simple English for restoration. I also want to read Ephesians 1, verse 4 to 5. I'm going to read from different translations, the NIV and the Message translation. For He chose us in Him before the creation of the world to be holy and blameless in His sight. In love, He predestined us for adoption to sonship through Jesus Christ in accordance with His pleasure. Ephesians 1 verse 3 to 6, Message translation. Long before He laid down earth's foundations, He had us in mind, had settled us on as the focus of His love, to be made whole and holy by His love. Long, long ago, He decided to adopt us into His family through Jesus Christ. What pleasure He took in planning this. He wanted us to enter into the elaborate of His lavish gift giving by the hand of His beloved Son. So whatever you went through that has influenced the way that you view yourself and you view your life does not reveal who you were created to be. In Christ, our identity is restored as we spend time with Him. The more we seek Him with all our hearts, the more we find Him and the more we find ourselves. Imagine living in a country where there's always war and you constantly feel unsafe and uneasy, and then someone comes to you and just says that you need to leave all your belongings behind and move to another country. Although it would be good for you, it does sound scary. The same way God invites us to leave the past behind, leave our old identity described by pain, suffering, and negative words. He wants us to live in our new identity, an identity that encompasses the abundance of being a beloved child of God. But sometimes we want to hold on to the negative words, our belongings, because for so long we've allowed them to describe us to the point where they've become our internal voice. But because of our identity in God, we have authority over our internal voice, and we can let it know that we are children of God, worthy and chosen, dignified before we were even born. The enemy will always attack our identity in Christ by reminding us of our old lives. But every day we can choose to be who God says we are and not believe the enemy, because we know that he is the father of lies. So anything that he says that we are, we know that we aren't. And anything that he says that we aren't, we know that we are. So I just want to end off by encouraging everyone to reevaluate the labels the labels that they carry and make sure that they align with who God says you are. And I pray that we all go on a journey of rediscovering our identity in God. And as we seek Him, I pray that He restores our identity in Him.